because everybody, when I was going to film school, I was there from 82 to 84. And everybody was very serious. Everybody wanted to be Godard. I always heard Godard. And I just wanted to be like Steven Spielberg. I wanted to make comedies. That's all I cared about. So I was kind of the weirdo who wanted to make comedies, and I'd make these comedies. And people thought they were funny, but it was just kind of like nobody ever took me serious. And so it made me kind of go, well, what's wrong with me? Like it almost kind of gave me confidence to kind of go, well, screw you guys. And I liked everybody. It was just, It was very weird. Like it was how looked down upon I was.
All right. Well, how do you start? How do you start a conversation with an icon and a veteran and someone who's done so many of these? Like,
I don't know. Is one around here? He's outside, but
this is a big moment for us. To have you on the show. You've shaped the careers of so many, and many people can attest to and know your work, and obviously the amount of time you've been around too, which I think speaks volumes to the undulations of the industry and how you've weathered them,
Oh, how they do undulate.
And
yes,
they do
exactly.
undulate, yes. So, but we like to start just a little bit at the beginning. I know you've already spoken ad nauseum about your journey and other shows and articles that folks can find, but just a little bit of like how you got into this moment in time. I know you were a self-proclaimed outcast in school. So when did you first decide you wanted to pursue a career in entertainment? And what did your parents, who were blue-collar workers, make of that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I knew kind of when I was 5 years old, I wanted to go into the business. I mean, I thought I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be, a funny person on TV and movies.
Is that because that was just what you saw more easily?
No, it's because I had this experience. I've written about it in one of my memoirs. But when I was 5, I got to play the lead elf in a Christmas pageant at school. And my father put together this ridiculous outfit for me based on things he found in his army surplus store. And so it was just ridiculous because all the other kids looked very professionally dressed. And I came out and the audience just giant laugh. I mean, they just went crazy. And they were clearly laughing at me.
Yeah.
But all I heard was this laugh. And it was just like, wow. And it was this weird shot of something that just said, I want that the rest of my life. I want to create that out of people.
Yeah. And when you identified what that was, that feeling, and you told your parents, all right, this is what I'm going to pursue, how do they take it?
Well, when you grow up in blue collar Michigan, the thought of showbiz is like going to the moon. I mean, I would go see movies, but movies didn't even mean the movies weren't movies to me. It was kind of like, I want to have what happened in that movie happen to my life. Like I saw Close Encounters, and to me, it wasn't a movie. It was like, I want aliens to come and take me away because I feel so like such an outcast here. So, but as I slowly kind of figured out with my next door neighbor, who he was into this, he was old. He was my babysitter, and then we became best friends. And
one does,
as one does, exactly. And he was making Super 8 movies for this class that he had, and so we got into making Super 8 movies, and I was always in it and stuff. And we were trying to do comedies that were always like rip-offs of like a Steve Martin, sketch or something. But yeah, and I started to learn about film that way, and bought this book just about filmmaking. And so when I came out to so I wanted to get into filmmaking, and actually, my father was the one who helped me because he had an army surplus store, and I was 15 years old, and he says, do you want to make a commercial for me? I said, what? It's they had those local commercials on VHS I can't remember what it was, UHF and VHF.
Right.
So like Channel 50 and all these things. So, got this, he let me write it and be in it and stuff. So it was terrible, but I was making something real and it was getting aired, and that was really exciting. And so he saw the writing on the wall that I wanted to go into showbiz, but he had this store. I was an only child, and it was always assumed I was going to take over the store, which that's what you do. But he was always kind of like, well, go get it out of your system. Go get it out of your system. And so I went to USC Film School because I'd gone out to California coming out here to LA to be a tour guide at Universal Studios, and discovered the film school and went to that. And it never got out of my system, obviously. And he kind of knew. He was great because he was very much, he said, be your own boss. That was his big thing in life. And he just saw that I wasn't cut out to manage a store. I just had zero interest in it whatsoever, other than making the commercials for it. So I would have ended up being like Crazy Eddie or something, like, we have a sale today, So fortunately, they were very supportive. My mother was very happy. My mom wanted nothing more than for me to go into showbiz.
Really?
Oh, yeah. She was kind of a stage mom. Yeah, because I wanted to be a tap dancer. And so I had tap dancing lessons. I wanted to play guitar. I had guitar lessons. And she would just take me everywhere. She
lived through you.
She did. She really did. And when I moved out here, I got her a subscription to Variety. That would show up in her Michigan mailbox every day. And she would always call me up. Oh, did you hear who ankled to here or whatever? Who's in Gotham now? It's like, Mom, you're talking showbiz speak more than I do.
You're like, I don't even know what happened.
I was going to say, nobody in the business talks like you are talking. But she just loved it. And eventually my parents moved out to L.A. before they died. And they
Was there a point for your dad then at what point, I guess, in your career did your dad kind of go, all right, this is really real for you. It's happening for you, because I know most parents have that fear of like, it's so hard. It's so competitive. Most people don't make it. So at what point did your dad kind of step back and go, oh, okay, like this is viable?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was when I started getting professional acting jobs, because I was the first, right out of college. Well, out of college, I became a script reader for Michael Phillips, the producer, because I had done an internship with them before I graduated. And then when I graduated, I was like, what do I do? And so called him up and said, can I have a job? And he's like, sure. So that was great. I really owe a lot to Michael Phillips.
And you studied film at USC? Or did you study theater?
Yeah, film. No, it's film and TV production. Yeah. Okay. And so, so went to work for him, but then just I was reading scripts, and I learned a lot reading scripts, because I learned that there was very few scripts out there that were any good that were being sold by top writers.
Yeah.
And so it was more that kind of like, well, I can do this, and but then just got tired. I didn't want to be in that behind the scenes sort of, or at that time I wanted to be, a performer. And so quit there to become a stand-up, and did stand-up comedy professionally for 5 years, and then transitioned into acting. And so when I got like my first TV series, which was Dirty Dancing, the TV series, I was a regular on, the sixth lead.
I love that they made that into a series.
I know, yeah. And it was a huge success, as you clearly could see, because it's playing all the time.
Yeah, the syndication alone.
Yeah, exactly. But when he heard what I was making per week, which, now is kind of like a joke, I think I was getting $2,000 per episode, which back then for me was gigantic.
Yeah.
And he was just like, he couldn't compute like you could make that kind of money.
Yeah.
And so that's when he was like, oh, okay, I guess it works.
Did you have any big takeaways of your time in film school?
I'm very conflicted about it, because I really am very loyal to USC Film School, and I made some really nice relationships there. Like my DP, who shoots all my movies now, John Schwartzman, we were in the same class together. So, so I had those kind of connections, but I didn't have that many connections that have kind of been fruitful out of film school. I think the biggest thing for film school for me was just kind of learning what I wanted to do and being kind of a contrarian, because everybody, when I was going to film school, I was there from 82 to 84 for 2.5 years, and everybody was very serious. Everybody wanted to be Godard. You always heard Godard. And I just wanted to be like Steven Spielberg. I wanted to make comedies. That's all I cared about. So I was kind of the weirdo who wanted to make comedies, and I'd make these comedies, and people thought they were funny, but it was just kind of like nobody ever took me serious. And so it made me kind of go, well, what's wrong with me? Like it almost kind of gave me confidence to kind of go, well, screw you guys. And I liked everybody. It was just, it was very weird. Like how looked down upon I was creatively because of that. I made a couple of like stop motion cartoons and stuff for class. And I remember that like one of the professors goes to the class, because one of the things I made was called The Day Pac-Man Ate Too Much. I did a Pac-Man board, had Pac-Man going around, and he's like, oh, I'm getting really full. And then he keeps going and he throws up all these dots. And that was it. So I showed that. And the teacher's like, well, what do we think? And I remember my friend John Schwartzman back then, he goes like, I don't even know what to say. He's like, I don't even know what I just watched, but it made me laugh. And it's like, okay, mission accomplished.
That's what you wanted.
Yeah, that's all I cared about.
Yeah. I mean, that's when you got really, after graduating, you get deep into the comedy scene. And, I think that's this idea of like finding your voice and nurturing like what is your POV as an artist, as a creative, especially in comedy. It feels like it takes a long time, but what was that journey for you? And especially because you started at that time working alongside folks that we've come to know who became future stars like Mike White and Judd Apatow. So how was that phase of your career and how these early relationships have really gone on to, become decades-long partnerships in a lot of ways?
Yeah. I mean, when you're in comedy, you find your people because there's so many different senses of humor out there. And when you find people who have the same sense of humor as you do, it's a big deal. And having been a stand-up, I've found a lot of people who were like-minded. I had a group that we would hang out at this house in the back of the valley that we called the Ranch, back on Satakoy, way back, in the bowels of the valley. And we would do our stand-up acts, and then we would go there every night because a couple of the guys lived there and just stay up all night playing poker and drinking coffee and just making each other laugh. But it was like Judd Apatow was one of the people that was there all the time. Steve Higgins, who now, runs SNL under Lorne, and people like Dana Gould, like successful comedians were all there. And so those relationships kind of blossomed, I mean, that was how Judd and I kind of became friends, and that partnership, sort of went forward just because we would always check in with each other, and he would always have me come to a script reading just to hear what he was working on and have me read stuff. And I stayed in contact with him. So, it was really that. So then when I wrote the pilot for Freaks and Geeks, my wife was, because I was going to send it to another friend of mine who had a deal over at Disney, a TV deal. And it was my wife who read it, and she goes like, "This is you and Judd. Like, this is your guys' voice. Send it to Judd." So I did. And like within 12 hours, he called up. He had a deal at DreamWorks. He's like, "I want to buy this. We're going to get this made." And I was a struggling actor. I was trying to make the transition away from acting. And had a terrible year because I'd taken all my money and made this independent film.
Yes. I want to talk about that because, you in another article, you mentioned that this was the end of 97 and you had made $35,000. It was the $35,000 you saved from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. You put into a film that you wrote and starred in called Life Sold Separately that you then couldn't sell.
No.
And then when you're in post, you find out that like, okay, they write you out of Sabrina. And now you're essentially, you said, have bankrupted you and your wife. So I really I'm sort of like a sycophant for the in-between, which people tend to gloss over because there's so much of that in our industry.
Yeah.
So from those couple of years from that era to you get Freaks and Geeks idea up and running, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay afloat? Why do you choose to stay?
Yeah. I mean, it's great that you talk about the in-between because that's where most people leave or just give up, and it's, have you had this where like somebody goes like, "Oh, can my nephew talk to you? He's thinking about getting into showbiz." I'm like, if he's thinking about getting into showbiz, I don't want to talk to him. I'm not going to convince you to get into showbiz. No, it's impossible to get in unless you are just like hell bent.
Unfortunately,
and driven.
You have to be really solid in it.
But I mean, my career was all ups and downs because, like everybody's is. But when I was an actor, you'd get a series like I'm set for 7 years, and then to get canceled after one season, and then you'd have a year where nothing came in, and you're just like, oh, and then you get another, and that happened to me for 5 times. I had 5 different TV series I was a regular on. And it was just sheer ambition and ego and desperation. And just wanting it. I just wanted to be in the business. I did not want to not be in the business. I love show business.
So there was nothing else for you. It wasn't like in the downtimes you would contemplate, what would it be like to be a general manager of a store or do anything else?
The most I thought was if everything goes terrible, I'll work in a bookstore just because I always loved books. That's where I would go to kind of recharge my creativeness, just being around all that stuff. But it was like that would be how I could make money while I'm still pursuing it.
Right.
But the thought of giving up was just never there, even though you'd be times like, oh man, is this going to happen? But I always had something in my head that I had to get to my mid-30s before I was going to be successful. Just something told me that. Because when I was an actor, when I was a kid, I'd made this vow to myself I was going to be famous when I was 19, which was ridiculous.
Well, when you're a kid, 19 is like ancient.
Yeah, exactly. So I could do it by then,
Yeah.
And so that came and went, obviously. But then when I was an actor, being a comedian and an actor, everything, I was in my 20s. Everything was about hiring people in their 30s. And then as I was approaching the end of my 20s, it all became about hiring people in their 20s, early 20s. So I was like, oh man, I phased out, I missed the wave.
Yeah.
But that's why I think something that was just telling me, you have to just get into your mid-30s. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. That just felt like I would be mature enough, or I would have enough experience to get in. The thing I always lament now is that you can know too much. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I'm listening to Barry Diller's book now.
Yeah.
And he said the same thing about it's about the idea, and just having that, being pure and keeping that. And it's so true, because when I created Freaks and Geeks, I was just like, who wouldn't love this? Who wouldn't want to watch a show of the worst times in their high school and their teen years portrayed in a funny way? And I mean, it became a cult classic show, but at the time, nobody wanted to see it, other than the 7 million people who, for TV back then was nothing. Now you have a giant hit. But it was that kind of hubris of just, I'm doing this, and Judd protected me because he just thought I was just hell-bent on making sure this was so honest and, and real and all that, but fun. And, then as I've been in the business over the years, there's so many things you're like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do that because that won't sell. And I know this. And it's like, I don't want to think that way, but you have to, because obviously we're in charge of millions and millions of dollars of other people's money.
When you're at the beginning of your career, there's so much that's unknown, but there is a freedom in that. Yeah. And that as you grow and as you evolve and you get success, people start to long for that feeling and those days where anything felt possible. Mm-hmm. And also people weren't paying attention to what you were doing anyway. Yeah. So you had more opportunities to fail and figure it out and find it. And now it's like, well, if it's not a hit, then what are you doing, right? Even if you're doing the same thing, but if you're also looking to the market or to what the industry is doing and all of that external stuff, it's hard. It's hard to stay true to your voice and your artistic integrity and take that into consideration. But it's like, how could you not as well?
Well, I always can look at, directors from the past, way in the past. And, they were making movies because you get, a studio contract and you're just getting put onto movies. So you're making movies. Mm-hmm. And there's pressure on them, obviously, but not like today, like you say. The first one is a big hit, and the second one, if it's not, you're out. You're in movie jail. But what I realize is that was TV. That was like going episode to episode as a TV director back then. And so I think the best thing that happened to me after Freaks and Geeks was I was just forced to become a TV director because I couldn't get other shows that I'd created on the air. So I was just going from show to show, doing different genres, and fortunately I was on really successful, shows that became really successful, like The Office and Arrested Development,
We've heard of those.
Yeah, exactly. The little show. But that's where I got the biggest part of my training was from that, but from just doing it and coming into shows that some of the shows I worked on would give you the script sometimes the day you showed up for the shoot. Like they were just rewriting so much. And I was such a pre-planner and storyboarder and all that, and had to throw that all out the window and just be in the moment. And my career just got so much better once I did that because I was in tune with the actors. I wasn't trying to be a control freak. And so that was for me the biggest kind of educational turning point, I would say.
Yeah, and while you were sort of a for-hire director for these shows, you were also writing in the background. But I guess you said you sort of shifted from acting into writing. Was that deliberate? You just didn't want to act anymore? You lost the joy? Like, what was that?
Well, I was always writing when I was acting. Because I was being a stand-up, you're writing your own stuff. Yeah. And then I would always write like an episode of whatever show I was on as a spec, and they would really like it, and then the show would get canceled, and they couldn't do it, But it was really, I saw the writing on the wall. My wife, Lori, kept saying, like, you should become a director. She just saw what I knew, that I was very limited as an actor. I had like a couple of things I was really good at. I could be either the goofball and be funny that way, or I could be like the sarcastic, sardonic guy. And that was kind of it. And, I had a few epiphanies, like once I was, going in for an audition for like Mama's Family, which was, some kind of, blessed, but it was kind of a low rent sitcom. And I'm in there, and Michael McKean is in there going in for the same role. And I'm like, Michael McKean's like, he was, on Laverne and Shirley. To me, he was this giant star. And I'm like, oh my God, like he's just out there pounding the pavement like I am, trying to get on a kind of a second-rate show. And it was like, do I want to do this? I want the control. And then when I made that film, Life Sold Separately, I kind of liked that feeling, but even though I was in it. And I kind of went, I don't know if I even like being in this. Like, I kind of like the moments when I'm directing other people and making them better. And then I watch the movie and go, like, I'm the weakest part of the movie, So it was all that added up to going like, but then really getting, written out of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, when that was a hit show. That was the final thing of like, forget it. I've got no control if I'm an actor whatsoever.
Yeah, that's not a good place for a control freak. I also started as an actor, and that was for me part of it. Like, I couldn't handle leaving all of my fate in someone else's hands. Like, just it was non-negotiable for me. There are too many challenges and too many roadblocks for me to even be here to just be like, well, all right, I'll just like work in the service industry and live for that one co-star role a year, which a lot of my contemporaries did and still do, and that for me was not a possible reality. And I didn't get put on a show right away. I didn't have all that stuff that you hope happens in your first couple of years in LA. So it was also a hard time when I moved out here. We had strikes and the crisis, financial crisis.
What kind of threw me about, or what I realized as an actor is I only have this, and so if you don't like this, then you're not going to hire me. Versus if I'm a creative and behind the scenes, I represent a possibility of something that could work, or something could be different, or something, and it's not based on how I look, how I sound, and what I do in the moment of a scene.
Yeah.
And I like that, I think that's great.
So if you had to rank your order of interest between writing, directing, producing, acting, how would you rank them?
Directing number one, and then writing number two. But they're so bound together that it's kind of hard to separate them for myself, because I rewrite so much stuff and all that. But producing is kind of part and parcel with it too, just because, you can either be a director who has no interest in producing and be I don't care about anything, I need this, be that person. I can't be that person. My dad brought me up too much with a business mind to do that. And so I look at it as being very, producing and directing to be very on top of each other. I know the Producer's Guild doesn't feel that way. So, yes, thank you. But I, which I think is unfair, because I think there are directors who produce and there are directors who don't produce.
Correct.
And
there are directors who don't produce and then want the producing credit. Yeah. And that's the challenge, right?
100%.
A lot of the conversations we have on this show is the sort of like, bastardization of the producing title, and it's sort of like everyone takes it. You look at a movie and it's like got 16 producers and you're like, what do these people even do?
Yeah.
And you go back and watch anything from like mid 90s and before, it's like 2 people.
Yeah.
Listed,
100%.
And so that for people that are very singular and they're producing focus, it creates a real conundrum of like, well, who is ultimately responsible at the end of the day?
Well, that's the thing. Who's who's calling the shots? Exactly. And I would be very frustrated when like managers would always suddenly, all managers were getting producing credits. Like, why are you getting, are you there with us? Are you making the hard decisions with us? And you can say a director is making a hard decision on a budget because he's trying to get his movie made, but at the same time, again, I've worked with directors and stuff who just like, I don't care, I at all costs, I must have this thing. It's like, well, I can't, you're not thinking smartly.
Yeah.
You got to adjust. And that's always been my, I learned when in film school, one of the first films I did, a short, I had a scene in an IHOP that was on campus, and I got it for the night. And, all my money, I had no money, obviously, but I needed to rent a waitress costume for this one actor who was going to play a waitress, obviously. I get there, it's middle of the night. I spent all this money to rent this waitress costume from Western Costume. Get there, the woman puts it on. It doesn't fit at all. And in a split second, I was like, I can either get all mad about this and stomp around, or I can adjust really quick. And it was like, okay, great. What did you wear today? Great. We have an apron. Put the apron on. Let's go. And it's like that. It's that kind of thinking. And I've seen other, directors spin out and like yell at everybody. And it's like, if you're not problem solving as a producer with a producer's mind,
right,
then you don't
it's
deserve.
all creative problem solving, which is, it's, you come at it from different angles, but the goal is usually the same, hopefully, if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
But because you do direct and you do produce, and with your company FICO, like, you guys pride yourself in developing edgy and commercial comedies with an emphasis on complex female characters. But when you're looking for projects, what are those specific elements you look for, and how do you delineate what you're interested in as a producer versus as a director?
My litmus test is, first of all, it has to be something that I connect to. But then it's, if I see the trailer for this and I don't know me, would I go, I have to see that movie? And that's the only kind of thing I can run through my head, because I've see trailers. I go like, I got to see that opening weekend. I see more trailers. I go like, I can wait for that. So in our company, it's the word undeniable. What is the undeniable idea that makes an audience go, I got to see that?
And what is undeniable? Because that's literally one of my words here, because everyone in Hollywood loves that word, undeniable.
Yeah.
And yet when we go look at options of things to watch, I go, that was undeniable to somebody, this garbage that's streaming or that's in theaters. And so there's like a disconnect for me. So what does undeniable mean to you?
Well, it's case by case, honestly. It's like charisma. You go, I can't tell you who has charisma or who doesn't until I do a bunch of auditions and one person walks in. I'm just like, wow, but I can't break that down to anything other than, it's your personal taste. Like you say, some people, there's plenty of stuff people love that I'm just like, I can't even, like reality TV. I cannot make myself watch it. I can't get into it. I've tried. I know that it's fake, and so it drives me crazy. But other people, clearly it's gone through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's an intersection between what you love and what intrigues you. And if you're kind of a populist thinker, which I am, I don't, I made a mistake early in my career with a movie called I Am David, trying to make an awards movie, and learned very quickly, if you're trying to win awards with a movie, you're just not pleasing anybody. You may please some people, but that if your goal is not to entertain an audience, then I think you failed personally. I think then you're making product for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's essentially then a home video. You're making stuff for yourself.
It's like a vanity project.
Right.
I've said in our company, my mantra has been vanity projects kill careers. I've seen how many countless directors have a hit, and then it's like, now I'm cashing in the chips and I'm making my vanity project. And I've seen it like put people in movie jail.
Yeah.
We all have projects that we love and we wish we could make. But I think as you move forward, you mature. Every project matures you in a different way creatively. And so to reach back for the thing, maybe it's the right thing to do. But I think in general, you've moved past that thing. And you'll keep going forward. Yeah.
What do you think makes an exceptional producer?
To be very even-keeled, even-tempered, to not panic, to be an immediate problem solver, and to be able to deal with I don't want to say temperaments, but the dramatics of creatives.
Theatrics.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
of showbiz.
Of people, because I've worked with some producers who will immediately get mad if like a writer gives them a hard time, and and it's like, guys, that's what this person does. They're creative. They're on the knife's edge, because I'm the same way. I mean, since I walk the two worlds, I really have to control my emotions, my creative emotions when I'm in producerial mode, and to not be like, or if I'm dealing with the studio and they go, you take that thing out, and you're like, you can't take that out because that's the heart of this thing, but have to go, okay, let's let's problem solve this. I see what they don't want, or they're looking at the money aspect of this. So how can I horse trade this or change this to keep that and still give them a win?
Yeah.
So it's politics. When I lecture to film students, I always say, you better love politics or you're going to go out of your mind and you're not going to get what you need, because if you're dealing with, producers or studios, everybody, the money people, all that, if you're not coming off as somebody who's doing a give and take, if you're just like, no, you're out, unless you're making gazillion-dollar thing. You're making them gazillion dollars and you're right every time. But the second you're wrong, they are going to pounce and throw you out.
Yeah. Learning that the politics of that is really tricky, I find. And especially for folks who've come up more in the independent space, it seems to me that if you work at a desk, if you come up in an agency, you learn the inner politics of Hollywood very quickly.
Yeah.
But when you're on the independent side, you're in the circus, you're in the trenches, you're a blue collar worker, really. Yeah. It's a little less, it's a different kind of politics that you play within the ecosystem of people that are hiring you. But it's different. And when I became an executive, which was later in my career, a couple of years ago, that was when I got to meet white collar Hollywood, as I like to say.
Yes, yes, exactly.
And it was very different, a very different vibe, very different conversations, very different in what you say and what you don't say. And I wish I had learned that skill a little bit earlier in my career.
Yeah.
Because it does take a minute to know like how you communicate the thing to those folks is just different than how you manage and operate, for example, a set, which is like a high stress environment with a finite amount of time. And in the white collar Hollywood, these relationships it's just a longer game and everything it's just different.
Well, I made a decision early in my career. I made Life Sold Separately, and then I did I Am David, which was for what became Walden, but it was still like a $7 million movie. So it's pretty in indie, basically. And we didn't have any distribution mechanism whatsoever. We made it and then we tried to sell it. And so those two experiences of trying to sell these movies and get them out there was so awful and took so long, and that didn't really work. Life Sold Separately never got distribution, and I Am David got terrible distribution. Came out, but like nowhere. I had been always hearing like, oh, when you work for the studio, that's politics, blah, blah, blah. It's really tough, blah, blah, blah. And I remember just going like, you know what? I'm going right into this. I'm going to find out. I'd rather deal with whatever they're going to throw at me and know my movie's going to get seen than try to have a wonderful experience, creative experience. And so, took on this movie called Life Sold Separately, a Warner Brothers Christmas movie, kids movie, which no, directors wanted to do. No working, legitimate feature directors wanted to do a kids movie. And that was a way to be a TV director and get into the studio system. So I did it. A lot of challenges. I made a lot of mistakes. I fought a lot of battles I shouldn't have fought. I was not political at all, but I learned how to do it and have never looked back. And I have no desire to go back into the indie world at all. I would much rather deal with the studios. I'm
Take
glad
me
people
with you, Paul.
I'm glad
Take
people
me.
do it. Yeah, I know. And look, and it's not easy, but
it's not.
But
I mean, all
like
of it is hard. I say you pick your hard. There's pros and cons to all of it, and I think there's benefit to knowing all of it. And if you're lucky enough to play in all those sandboxes in your career, you know, those are the goals. I want to shift gears a little bit to we've been in Los Angeles in the last 5 years. I mean, it's been a longer time than that, but these last 5 years, certainly this year, we've really felt the production exodus and the lack of work that's here. And you've shot, obviously, here in LA. You've shot a ton abroad. You live between LA, London, New York. So you're a very worldly man. But what are your thoughts around this production exodus and these wonderful movements that exist, like Stay in LA, around how do we preserve some of the DNA of what is Hollywood?
Tax breaks, tax breaks, tax breaks.
Yeah.
I cannot stress it hard enough because it all comes down to that. And it's terrible that it does because I love shooting. I would love to shoot here all the time. Last movie I shot here was Bridesmaids. I mean, I did some reshoots for School for Good and Evil here, and that was it. And I want to be here. And there's so many people that I love here and crews I love here. But I can't convince the studio to shoot here because the money's not going to go far enough. So I'm very heartened that they did this, up the tax break, or put the $750 million.
Mm-hmm. It's a start, but
it's a start, but it's got to be more.
It's got to lure.
It's got to be the most wonderful place. So it's got to be above and below the line. It's got to be a big tax break, because these other places are ponying it up.
Oh yeah.
And I feel terrible every time we go off to do a movie somewhere, but it's like, I wouldn't be able to make the movie if I couldn't. I could stonewall, but then I'd have to constrict my budget so much that I couldn't get the things I need for the movie.
Yeah.
So it's very frustrating because I love Hollywood. I love, I want all these studios to be full, and I want to be back in the world where you're walking through the lot and there's guys dressed like centurions, and there's and the commissary is filled with people like astronauts and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I want it to be a burgeoning place, but it's only going to come through tax breaks.
Yeah. I mean, that, and also, I think high-powered individuals almost like forcing the hand of some studios and figuring out ways to make the numbers make sense to keep it in LA, right? Mm-hmm. We've had a couple, like we had Sterling K. Brown on the show, and he famously was like, I'll do the TV show, but we got to keep it in LA. And there's certain people that can command that kind of request, certainly on the talent side, where studios will bow down to that. But the economics just rarely make sense is the problem. And even if we get some, like, I just don't see us ever returning to the volume of what it once was.
It's hard as long as there's the lure of these giant tax breaks other places with cheaper labor and all that stuff. But no, I mean, powerful people can demand it, but in today's corporate world, I don't even see the corporations going like, okay, we'll pay an extra $10 million, extra $15 million. It's dollars and cents. I mean, they are just, we are being, every movie I make over the last 5 years has gotten more and more like inflexible. It used to be you could go like, oh, we really need this. Okay, we'll give you another 2 or whatever. Now it's just like, I mean, I've had meetings. They're like, this is it. And like, well, what about this is it? So then I have to go, okay, and and move things around, knowing I'm going to save money on other
places,
things.
Yeah.
Well, which brings me to a big point, which if the guilds and the unions and everybody would embrace continuous hours, and hear me out, because I know it got ruined by a lot of places that would say, oh, we're doing, French hours, doing continuous hours, and then they shoot a 15-hour day.
Right.
It has to be cameras down at 10 hours, or I just did a movie in New Jersey, it was 9 hours. You have to stick to that.
Yeah. And
if you stick to that, your hot costs drop so exponentially as you're going that I always come in under budget on my movies now. And we always come in on schedule, but under budget, doing this continuous hours. And we have a healthy crew and everybody has a good life. Exactly. But I know, it became a thing during the strikes and everything of like, if you even said French hours, you were a villain. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, I get it if it's abused, and it all comes from the director. I'm sorry. I mean, producers can be on it. Only the director can make French hours, continuous hours work by saying, I'm planning my day for this with my AD, in my DP who knows we got to move fast, and be watching, you looking at your watch the whole time. I got 1 hour left and we're going to pull the plug, and that's how it gets done. Yeah.
What's been one of the biggest challenges you faced as a producer in your career, particularly as a producer, and then how have you overcome that?
Yeah, I think it's just finding the right material, because that's our biggest job at the end of the day is what are we going to develop? What are we going to find? What are we going to make that comes in? And it goes back to the undeniable thing, and getting the script right is just the hardest thing. I wouldn't even say it's fun. It's not really fun. Once you get there, it's fun,
Right, but the journey is arduous. Development, I mean, it really is a beast. Yeah.
And with the Writers Guild now, with some of their rules about limiting the amount of passes that a producer can ask for is very harmful to the writer. And because we've had this happen a few times recently where like we can't ask for a rewrite. So we have, the writer and their agent are saying you have to turn it in the studio. And we're like, if we turn this in, it's not going to get made. But the guild says blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, but I'm telling you, they're not going to make this. And it's happened. I mean, it's happened a couple times where we turn it in and it's not right. And we're like, and then they get rid of it. And it's like, so everybody's got to be realistic about what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
And you know, the idea that producers are there like, you know, we're just going to squeeze every bit of juice out of this we can. We have no motivation other than trying to get this thing made.
Right.
That's the only thing we care about.
You've invested so much.
Yeah.
It's not like,
I can't wait to make that writer go back and write endlessly, you know, like with nothing more we want than to just turn this in and have
make the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
It's challenging.
Speaking of challenging, let's talk about comedy, because comedy is challenging. You've worked on some of the most iconic comedies of the century. We talked about this at the top: The Office, 30 Rock, Parks and Rec. There seems to be this feeling, and maybe it's nostalgia, I don't know, you tell me, that comedies of the late 2000s were really genuinely successful, and people time and time again come back to those now, 20, 25 years later. What do you think it was about that era, and how do we find that magic again?
I know. I mean, I miss it. I think part of it was as many great comedies got made, there was a lot of not great comedies that got made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think audiences showed up to a lot of those not great comedies and went like, that was supposed to be better, you know? And I think comedy got lazy for a while. It just became like, sure, we do this, you know, it's crazy and people will show up. And then the sequels, you know, just like, okay, if you like that, then you're going to like the next one. And the sequel whelms or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think audiences just started to get burned. And I think they got very then hostile towards comedy. I mean, you know, I've told this story a lot, but, you know, when we put out the trailer for Bridesmaids, you know, I was monitoring online the reactions to the trailer and stuff. And there was so much like, oh, clearly all the funniest jokes are in the trailer. Like this, it was this feeling of like, we're trying to pull one over on them. Like we're trying to sell something that's not good by making it look good, and then it's not going to be. And so I just was getting this general feeling, I think people are just really, really suspicious of comedy. And it's sad because, you know, some good ones were coming out, but then, you know, other ones weren't. And then I think people just started wanting more. I feel like comedy has become, it feels frivolous to people a little bit, like that they want stakes, and comedy in its purest form doesn't really have stakes. It's just fun, you know. So, you know, if it's like a spoof of a spy movie or an espionage thing or something, you got a funny villain, you know, who's kind of bumbling and all this. So the audience is like, okay, I'm just kind of going joke to joke, and maybe I kind of invest in these characters a bit, but I'm not going like, okay, this is like dangerous or something bad could happen, or I'm worried, so I'm not leaning in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, that's why so much comedy is heading towards horror these days, you know, because the stakes are high, but then the fun can still be there. Mm-hmm. You know, I was so, like, my whole perspective was changed when I saw the movie 48 Hours when it first opened, which was Eddie Murphy's first, you know, comedy film. You know, I loved him from Saturday Night Live, and we all like trundled off to the theater. Oh, this is gonna be so much fun. And then like it opens up, and there's like somebody gets executed in a hallway, like with a gun in the back of the head. And I was like, what am I watching? But then I realized, wow, I'm really invested in Eddie Murphy, you know, and Nick Nolte getting through this thing. You know, there's the famous scene where he goes in the country western bar, you know, and he's making all the hilarious lines from that. But you're like, somebody might shoot this guy in here.
Yeah.
And I kind of realized, wow, if you can put stakes into comedies the way that they do with that and like Beverly Hills Cop and those things, then that seems like the way to go versus just something that's kind of goofy.
Yeah.
And I love goofy. I mean, yeah, you know, Marx Brothers movies are my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
But, you know, people need that.
But, you know, we had the success this past summer of the new Naked Gun movie, and then Hollywood was sort of declaring that comedies were back finally. But do you feel like, I mean, television certainly, but in film, do you feel like there was ever a drought? Or it sounds like you're saying there was just a string of a lot of just films that didn't really deliver on the promises to audiences, and then audiences seem to go like, no, thank you to all of it.
Yeah.
But then you have these one-offs that make people go, we're back. Comedies are back. Bring me all your comedies.
Yeah. But then I loved The New Naked Gun. I wish it had done better.
Yeah.
You know, and that also that Jennifer Lawrence movie, No Hard Feelings, you know, that did really well. They've only done so well, you know. I mean, look, I made Ghostbusters, which became a whole other rigmarole with all the political stuff against it. But that came in under, and it's people go like, well, yeah, it was terrible. It's like I know, but we were trying to do like a big comedy, and with what I thought were heavy stakes and big emotions and stuff like that. But that, I mean, if you look at that, I mean, there hasn't been that many comedies. I mean, like Girls Trip, huge. And that was, it was great. So we were all like, oh, good, here it comes. But then they started to become one-offs, I think. Again, because I think people, unless they hear from everybody else, this movie's great and hilarious, you got to go see it. They're still a little like, well, okay, I'll wait and watch it at home.
And I think that's part of it, too. It's the audience habits, right? We know this. Like, people don't go to theaters as much. So then even if you had double the numbers, 20 years ago and you surveyed all those people, maybe not everybody loved it, but they had a good enough time and they paid their ticket and they moved on with their day,
Yeah, exactly.
So that part of it is different. But, I think it's interesting that time and time again, there's a sea of content now and younger audiences still seem to find these shows from 20 years ago, Freaks and Geeks, of course, Arrested Development, classic comedies that still resonate so deeply. Like, do you think there is something about these particular shows, because obviously there were comedies being made at that time, that have something intangible perhaps that people of all generations, of all times, keep finding them and connecting with them?
Well, for television, I've always been of the mind that your favorite TV show comedy is, I'm going to visit these people I love once a week. I'm going to go to my favorite place. That's why Cheers works so well. That's why Friends works so well. The Office works so well, because you're going to a place and you love all these people. Seinfeld, it goes on and on.
Yeah.
So people have a much more personal relationship with TV. I mean, when you hear, back in the day or even now, but back then, especially when Seinfeld was on, it's like, oh man, did you see what George did? Like, they're talking about people like they're their friends. And so that's the power of television. But it's because it's on every week and it's coming into your home, and that's why I'm more in favor of sort of weekly shows versus the binge thing, because you can't wait to see what happens next, and you can't wait to go visit with these people. So that's nice. But that's, TV, the stakes of television are so much different because you're just getting somebody to turn something on.
Right.
And movies is getting them up out of their house, pulling out their wallets, so that's why just the standard is so much higher for us to try to make it undeniable.
Yeah. Why do you think that comedies generally get so overlooked during award season, right? I mean, Bridesmaids is unique in many ways. Yeah. It's an iconic film, but one of the ways that it was so unique is that in 2012, it actually received 2 Oscar nominations, which rarely happens. Best original screenplay for Kristen and Annie, and then, of course, Best Supporting Actor for Melissa McCarthy. But we were talking about this earlier, even back to your film school days. It seems like this industry has always had like this sort of eye roll thing when it comes to comedy, yet everyone acknowledges that it's one of the hardest things to do well, whether it's performance or writing or executing that vision. So why do you think that is?
I think everybody says that, but nobody believes it unless you're in comedy. I mean, comedy's really hard, and then they don't vote for it. Here's exactly why. Because if you do comedy correctly, it has to look effortless. It has to look easy. Because if it's not, it's what we call sweaty, and then it's not funny. So, this example I always use. Steve Carell never won an Emmy for The Office because, and I would talk to people and go, oh, well, he just shows up he's crazy. Are you crazy? Like, do you know how not Steve Carell, the character of Michael Scott, is, how hard he works? But it would always be Alec Baldwin would get it because that was much more showy and very big and all this stuff. And, and I think people who don't know comedy they like this either perform like big things, and those of us in comedy, especially now, I mean, the 90s was very broad,
Right.
comedy was very broad. But then, once the 2000s came in with the internet and YouTube and people watching videos of actual people falling down and, having weird things happen to them, people got more into the subtleties of kind of human behavior. And that's why, The Office worked so well, because it was that docu-style. So that to the next level felt kind of real, so you're like, wow, these people are crazy and funny, but they're kind of real. Like I'm in this real place. And so it's all, but that all has to work. You have to work so hard to make that look easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they're like, well, that was easy, so I'm not going to vote for that. I'm going to vote for this thing, this drama that's working so hard over here, and so everyone's crying, or
transformation.
Yes,
method.
exactly.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, cool. I think that stuff's cool too. But the thing that you really enjoyed, that you thought was really easy, was actually a masterwork of walking a tightrope with everybody. And it's never going to change. I when I got involved with the Academy for a while, I was hell bent on, and I had meetings with the president of it at the time about trying to, let's get a comedy, comedy movie, category, and realized, as with the Golden Globes and stuff, if we do that, they're just going to, any movie is going to go, we're a comedy, and they're going to go into that thing. My example of that is when Judd and I both, he had Trainwreck, I had Spy. We both lost the Golden Globe Comedy Award to The Martian from Ridley Scott, who got up and said, "I didn't know I was a comedy." So
Wow.
It's like, so the only thing I thought of to help solve that is, if you have to declare if your movie's a comedy before you make it to the Academy, say this is, so you can't suddenly discover like, oh, we had one laugh in the movie, we're a comedy now because the category of drama is too hard.
Mm-hmm. Too competitive.
Yes, exactly. But at the end of the day, you don't do this to win awards. Do you think any of us thought we were going to get nominated for 2 Oscars when we were making Bridesmaids?
No, absolutely not.
When Melissa McCarthy's shitting in a sink? No.
No, but that is an Oscar-worthy performance.
There you go. Yeah, thank you.
Is Charlize
exactly.
shitting in a sink? I haven't seen her do that. Do you think, okay, so when we think about TikTok, short-form content, this rise of social media, how do you foresee that changing the film and TV landscape? I think there's a lot of constant murmurs around the attention spans of young folks, and why does anybody turn up for anything longer than a minute? But like, what are your thoughts around all of that?
Well, I mean, there's all this new research and stuff coming out that's saying that young people are really wanting to going back to the movies. That I think, look, it's such a pendulum that swings. And how many times have I had to do interviews about, NATO had me come in and during the pandemic and do a lot of interviews, because everybody's like, well, movie theaters are dead now. Everybody's home watching, everybody likes watching at home. I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you know, but when this pandemic is over, how desperate everybody's going to be to get out of the house and be around other people? And so I don't worry about that. People always are going to want to have that group experience. That's never going to go away. And that's why, I'm so happy with my new movie, The Housemaid. We're back theatrical. My last 3 movies have been streaming, which has been wonderful because it got us through the pandemic, got to make some really bigger movies. But it was also very anticlimactic of like, and we're out. Click. Okay, it's in people's houses. We can't drive around to the theaters and stand in the back and watch them enjoy it. Like
just standing outside their window.
Yeah, like, you like it? And like, wait, why are you going to the bathroom? You missed the big
funny part. Yeah.
Well, they made us do test screenings, but like those online test screenings. I did one and I said, I'm never doing this again, you guys, because they basically, you watch people in their house sitting. So you're watching, and one guy's petting the cat, and one guy's going off to get a sandwich. Another person disappears for 5 minutes. Another person's like looking at their phone, and you're like, well, and then, the feedback, oh, you didn't understand this part, is because you weren't in the room when we set it up. So,
it's so hard to be disciplined when you're watching anything at home, to not just be like I do this all the time with my husband. We're like, where did they shoot this? Who's in that? Have I seen them before? And then all of a sudden you've like lost 5 minutes of the movie because you're like on this rabbit hole that if you're in a theatrical experience, there's still the etiquette that you're not going to do that, though some people do.
Yeah.
But like there's, at least for me, like I came up at a time when it's like, this is a very serious space. We treat this space, it's church.
No,
you
it's
know?
a sacred place.
It's sacred. And you don't want to be the person that ruins that experience for others. But yeah, it is so tempting to just be able to like pause the experience, and then you do miss on the intention of the filmmaker of the journey that you're supposed to go on.
Totally. Well, it forces us to construct our movies differently. You know, what's great about a theater is you've trapped the audience for, let's say, 50. If they really hate the movie, 15 minutes in, they'll walk out of the theater. But you've got 15 minutes to grab them. Streaming, we're like, if we don't grab them the first 30 seconds, they're going to flip to the next thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I always say I always want to all my movies I try to shoot out of a cannon, but at the same time, like, you know, movies work because you're slowly kind of seducing the audience into loving these characters who you're going to spend 2 hours with, and then you're going to have a complete experience by the end of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's just so much nicer to know we can not take our time telling a story, but we can just not have to go this breakneck pace at the top to try to get you interested and get you to stay.
Yeah, it's just like I think about those what are they called? They're like the air in them with the
those dancing things. Yeah,
I feel like it's just a bunch of those, you know. So people could be like, oh, there's another one. You have to do that in streaming, whereas in a movie you get to like slow, you know, just be more slow and methodical with it.
I like nice slow burn, you know.
Slow burn.
Yeah.
And indeed the Housemaid was a slow burn.
A lot of burning.
I think that this is where, if we had a budget on the show, we would cut to a segment of you and I going China shopping, perhaps.
There you go. Exactly.
And I'm so curious how this project came to you and what made it a hell yes for you to direct.
Yeah, it was something that my producing partner Laura Fisher had been tracking, because we have a deal. No, we didn't have the deal at Lionsgate at the time. We were doing a movie, doing Another Simple Favor over with Amazon Lionsgate, and she had heard rumblings of this project, The Housemaid, floating around there, but it was more of a straight up thriller, quote unquote. And so they weren't, even though I was doing these Simple Favor movies, which are, you know, thrillers and kind of dark in that way, but they're still kind of comedic.
Yeah.
They weren't kind of thinking of me for it. And she was kind of pushing them to think about it. And then they were so happy with the test screenings we were having of Another Simple Favor that they brought it up to me. And I was like, yeah. And then they said Sydney was attached. And I've been desperate to work with Sydney just because I saw the movie Reality with her. And I'm just like, wow, she's really talented. And so so I said, like, can I read that script? And I read it and I really responded to it. And then, I just stayed on them. And there was a little blip where it looked like they were going to go with somebody else. And I just called them up and said, like, look, if that changes, I want this. And then fortunately it changed again. And then I came on board.
Well, was it about it that peaked for you? Because you said you really responded to the material, but what about it?
Well, everything I do, I want to be female centric, and I thought it had two great 3-dimensional roles for two women. I liked that it had a big twist. I'm a fanatical about finding twists in movies. I just love them, and it was based on a best-selling book, so I knew we had a good IP behind us. You know, so there were so many things that were saying this could work as long as I don't screw it up, you know. And and I love, even though I'm a comedy guy, I love making thrillers. I like making, you know, things that have more gravitas to them that we can make fun, you know, which is what I'm so in awe of what Zach Kreger did with Weapons, you know, because that's the same thing. Like that starts out and you're terrified, and then by the end you're just laughing your ass off but with stakes, you're just enjoying the revenge that happens at the end of that so much. But that's all very, you know, through just such a methodical kind of chipping away at the genre. So the ability to get to do that is just too much fun.
It's been interesting, the rise of folks from comedy who are moving into the horror thriller space, and at least for the films that I respond to in the genre, because I'm not really like a big horror thriller fan generally, are from those kind of perspectives, and there is a lot of similarities in terms of the tension and release, right, that you create with comedy. But as we were talking about earlier, there's been this like pause in greenlighting traditional comedies because it's sort of been almost like put in a little jail because it hasn't performed or because audiences haven't loved or whatever the reason is, that it has made me wonder if like the only way to really still play within the comedy genre for a lot of people is to have these hybrid models, you know?
I think mixed genre is the way forward and always going to. And it was taboo. I mean, when I did the first Simple Favor, we were all set to do it at one studio. And then they pulled out like with 9 weeks before we were going into production. And like we literally had a crew and everything waiting. And I had a star that couldn't go past, one date, and called up some other studio head friends of mine and were told like, well, we already have one mixed genre project. We can't do it because that was you had to be a comedy or you had to be a drama. And fortunately, my distant cousin, Eric Feig, took us in over at Lionsgate. And that's why the movie worked, because it is a mixed genre movie. You call it that. I mean, to me, a movie's just a movie.
Hollywood loves its boxes.
They do love boxes.
You gotta love them.
But I think the audience is tired of boxes, and I think that's why they're demanding more of this kind of thing. But look at a movie like Bridesmaids. That's still got a high emotional stakes to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that, everybody remembers, the shitting in the sink and the airplane and all that stuff. But the reason that movie works is because you are so invested in these two best friends getting back together.
Yeah.
And it's heavy. I hadn't watched it in years, and I watched it at this South by Southwest in Sydney, the festival, where they gave me an award. I had to mention that, of course.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know that you were awarded once at least.
I should have brought it with me. But I was watching it after not watching it a long time ago. Like we had a lot of serious scenes in this, that had really high emotional stakes. And
it's a lot of art.
I don't know how much you can get away with. Look, you say that, and then somebody's going to do the dumbest comedy of all time, and it's going to make $1 billion. And I would celebrate that.
We're going to enter another Dumb and Dumber era. Like, that's going to happen, and new audiences will discover a genre of comedy they haven't seen before, even though it's been around forever, right? It's just like you said, the pendulum will always swing, but at least we're in this moment where if that's the box or the couple boxes you have to play in to get these kind of movies pushed through and made, then that's exciting that they can exist, you know?
But I was very frustrated because I made a movie for Amazon called Jackpot, which was John Cena and Awkwafina, and my only goal with that movie was I want to make a big balls out comedy that is like a Jackie Chan thing, just action comedy, nutty, and made it, and the critics destroyed it. Absolutely destroyed. We were doing test screens, it was killing, but then it came out on streaming, so nobody got to have that group experience with it.
Yeah.
And it soured me more, like going, I really tried hard, because everybody was like, why isn't Paul Feig doing comedies anymore? So, well, here it is. And like, well, we hate this. It's like, all right. And the whole thing that they were mad about was that, it was a story about basically, in the near future in California, there's a lottery. And if you win, everybody with a losing ticket has until sundown to kill you and take your prize legally, so, kind of Running Man kind of thing. But to me, it was just like, oh, this is just a launch pad for hilarious, physical, crazy comedy action. All the critics were like, we thought this was going to be a polemic on society and, in class and the rich versus poor. I was like, guys, don't put that on me.
Right.
Like,
not everything has to say something.
Yeah. So I'm taking the hit because I didn't deliver what you wanted, even though nothing in any of our advertising or anything said that's what you were going to get. So there is frustration for that too, because now, people are like, well, nobody listens to the critics anymore. No, they do. People listen. They put your Rotten Tomatoes score up on the streaming service. So, flip around and go, well, that got 30. I'm not going to watch that. So we're stuck. We're kind of stuck in this thing versus at least you get some word of mouth when you're in a theater. Because here's the part, if I may expound just a little bit more. Tell me to shut up if you want.
No, please keep going.
The reason we love comedies and we hold old comedies near and dear to us is that most of us saw it in a theater first. So you had this big group experience. You heard people laughing. You had this great time. So then every time you watch it from now on, that audience is with you. You're hearing that in your memory. You're remembering the warm, fun feelings you had from that. And that's why they become part of you. And if you don't have that initial experience, I'm not saying you can't watch an old comedy for the first time on TV and love it. You can, but you're behind. You're not getting the extra fun of bringing that experience along with you.
Yeah,
and so that's why it's so. Like, we have to get comedies back in theaters.
It imprints, and it changes the way you experience it and relive it, and then you talk about it. I mean, I've had that experience with a lot of comedies that I had the funnest time watching it in a theater, and then when I watch it at home later, showing like one or two people, you're like, huh. Doesn't.
Well, that's always the worst.
Not because of the comedy itself, because you are in that, like, it is toxic. It's the energy is infectious, rather, not toxic. It's an infectious energy of just like someone laughing at something that maybe you didn't even think to laugh at, but you're like, oh my God, that is actually really fun. You know what I mean? Like, it just shows you different perspectives in this way, that how you communicate with your reaction to what's on screen.
And we as filmmakers engineer the movies for that.
Exactly.
We do so many test screenings as I do my first test screening with a movie 5 weeks into my director's cut, when I just go like, I think it works. Let's see what works and what doesn't work. And then we record the audience, and my editor and I sit in the audience with them and listen, and and it's recruited people. It's not friends and family, which is completely worthless. And we're going like, oh, what is getting this group experience? So by the time we lock this comedy, we know it works with 90% of audiences.
Yeah. One of the most memorable moments in the movie is there's a Kelly Clarkson needle drop.
Yes, there is.
That we loved when Nina's in the hotel room. We won't say anything beyond that.
Exactly, no spoilers.
Talk about that song choice and that moment.
Yeah, that was. It's a funny that you bring that one up. That was we had the hardest time kind of settling on that one, because I wanted it to be kind of a risky business, kind of tribute, which then I realized, okay, nobody under 50 remembers that movie. But
I think young people know that.
I guess they know that the famous.
It's on TikTok. They've seen this theme.
Him going around the house celebrating in his underwear.
Yeah.
So I shot it to Bob Seger's Old Time Rock and Roll, and that's what and Amanda Seyfried was dancing around to that and stuff. It was great. But then, as we're screening it for various people, the studio and all that, I'm just realizing, okay, to them it's an old man choice, and so we started looking for replacements and just tried everything, and just and nothing kind of worked. Everything felt weird and forced in. So finally, Laura Fisher, my producing partner, went around to all these women and said, "What's your celebration song that you would play in the car, and you might not even want everybody to know?" And that was the song that came up for a majority of women. So we put it in, and fortunately it sunk up really well to what Amanda was doing.
It works. And I know you talked about Sydney was already attached, but the process of finding Amanda and, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the lovely gentleman.
Oh, Brandon Skladar.
Yeah, Brendan. Like, the process of finding those two, was that also pretty seamless once you had?
Yeah, well, Amanda, I had met with Amanda like 10 years prior, and we just really hit it off, and we're just like, we got to do something together, and just couldn't figure out what it was. And then when this popped up, it was just like, it just seemed too right, because the physical similarities between Sydney and Amanda seemed to work really well, and Amanda's such a great actor that it just felt.
She got to have some fun.
Oh, she had some fun.
I'm happy for her.
She had such a great time doing that. Yeah. She was so happy on that set. And then Brandon was, when we were doing Another Simple Favor, Blake kept saying, she was in the middle of doing It Ends With Us, and she kept going like, I'm working with this guy who is so amazing. His name is Brandon Skladar, and he's like everything. He's handsome and funny. And it was like, all right, Blake, take it easy. Like, all right. And then so when this role came up, his name came up for an agent. I was like, that's the guy that Blake loves. And then I saw her movie, and I was like, I really liked him in that movie. He was like a solid, and he was like a really good guy in the movie. And so I was like, yeah, can I have lunch with him? And so had lunch, met him at the Tower Bar. And the minute he walked in, I was like, oh, like, you got the role. Like, he
charisma.
Yeah, I mean, charisma for days. Yeah, and he was so fun and funny and so knew how to play that character and really wanted the challenge of that character. And so And the studio was kind of looking at some other people for that. And I was just like, I want this guy. I want this guy. I want this guy. Yeah.
What do you hope audiences take away from the film?
They have a great time. Again, I just make movies to entertain. This movie gets very dark.
It's got something to say.
Yeah, but it's very cathartic because it does everything you kind of want it to do by the end.
Yeah.
Like everything you're hoping is going to happen to these characters happens to them.
Yes.
And the test audiences have just gone crazy for them. I mean, they're so interactive with this movie. It's fantastic.
I think it's going to do great.
Thank you. And big credit to Lionsgate because, as we've been doing a lot of stuff for journalists and long lead press and all that, I say my only rule is please load the theater. Just load the theater with people. Not rubes or people who are fake reacting. Just bring people who haven't seen the movie. So all these people are seeing it with an audience. And all the comments we're getting is like, it was so much fun. The audience was so into it. And so I'm desperately trying to generate these, go back to these big group experiences. Yeah. And I think, this one's going to work.
Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect Christmas movie.
There you go.
That's all I'll say.
A dark little Christmas. Exactly.
Okay. I noticed in the opening credits, there was a new company announced, actually, which is an AOP exclusive.
There we go.
I don't know.
Fireworks.
So Pretty Dangerous Pictures.
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit, why you started it and how it's going to differ from FICO.
I realized we're heading more into wanting to do more of these kind of thriller-based kind of films. Not that all my movies are going to be that way, but like high stakes. Let's just call them like high stakes kind of entertaining films. I won't even call them comedies, And it just felt like, we have this logo that's a Danny Gagliotti painting, who's a painter I collect, who's brilliant, of this, woman in a pretty dress, and she's got these big gardening shears behind her back, and I would just kind of was like, we should kind of, I want to play off that, a little bit more, and this just felt like the right time to go. Like, let's just launch a new company name for the film division, and so now we are Pretty Dangerous Pictures, and that's
just the films.
Yeah, just
that
the film
you
side.
Produce and direct.
No, it'll be any films we do.
Film.
All films in our company. Yeah, and I'm keeping keep the TV side separate from that.
Yes. Well, you heard it here first, unless you talk about it before this comes out.
Nope,
in a month.
I won't. You got the exclusive.
You got the exclusive.
There
you
guys
heard it here.
There you go.
This is the last question.
Okay.
And I know we have some things we skipped before we move on to the martini round, FYI. Each film is its own tiny miracle. As we know, it takes so much for it to even get made, and anything can go wrong at any moment. But they all teach something, right, about ourselves, our craft, and how we can be 1% better each time. What are you taking away from Housemaid and into the next one?
That's a great question. The trusting an audience to be able to sort out what we're doing. But also manipulating an audience in a really fun way. I mean, no spoilers, but what I love about this movie is we really lure you into something that then we completely pull the rug out from under you on. And the fact that audiences can go with it and can reinvest as we change the narrative is really exciting to me.
Yeah.
And it was a tightrope we had to walk. But trusting audiences are really smart. Every time you want to kind of get down on an audience after you have like a weird test screening or something, you go like, no, they're much smarter than a lot of people give them credit for, and a lot of storytellers and a lot of studios give them credit for. And so it's like the fun of how do we stay ahead of them, but how do we bring them along? And it's just a real treat to watch them just come with us.
Yeah. Well, this has been lovely. How do you end? I want to talk to you forever.
Well, as you can see, I can talk forever too.
No, so. I can as well. That's why I have a podcast. But we could do like a telethon. We would just kind of just tune in, like a live stream of just us hanging out.
Let's do a telethon.
That would be fun.
I like that.
I think some of the takeaways is, find poker nights where you drink copious amounts of coffee, and that's the best networking you can do.
There you go.
So if you do all of that, then
you got it made.
You've got it made. You know,
it's easy.
Showbiz
is easy. Let me talk to your nephew who's thinking about getting into showbiz.
If you're thinking about it, come on in. The water's warm. Well, as we move on to the martini, which is our last round, congrats on creating and launching your own award-winning brand of gin.
Thank you.
So why gin?
I'm a martini fanatic. The only real martini is a gin martini. Sorry, vodka people.
Yeah, I hear that.
Exactly.
I'm a vodka person.
I know. It's fine, but it's called a vodka martini, but it's not a martini. There you go. I'm kind of insufferable when it comes to this.
Yeah.
And I've always loved gin, but I always kind of, all the gins I taste, I go like, yeah, I like these, but I know what I want a gin to taste like. And so finally was able about 8 years now ago to link up with a company called Minhas and bring my recipe in, develop my recipe with them, and then create the bottle and everything. And but I'm really proud of it. We won tons of awards, and it's really good.
The taste of gin, I find hit or miss for me.
Yeah.
And I only recently learned that not all gin is created equal because it's all different recipes of different botanical herbs and things. And
That's exactly it. There's a million different flavors of gin.
That was interesting. I didn't know that.
Well, my gin has been formulated. I made it because most people are like yourself. Most Americans.
So you made it for me.
Most Americans do not like. I don't like gin. It's because they've all had those old fashioned, like Beefeater and all those the old traditional ones, which are very piney, very juniper forward, and that's the thing that puts people off. So I pulled back on the. You have to have juniper. You're not a gin without juniper. But I pulled way back on it, and then I had a little more floral, a little bit of black pepper in there, and.
How long did it take you to perfect your formula?
The formula took probably about 6 months to get right with these distillers, going just back and forth, and they make a bunch of different kind of ones based on what I've described that I want, and then they do like 8, and then you go, I like that one, I don't like that one, less of this, more of that, and then they keep doing that, and so the flavors are getting much closer as they are doing those 8, and by the time you have the final 8, they're like micro variations between them. Yeah, and then you settle on the one you like.
How do you settle between 8 of them?
A lot of tasting, and you're drunk off your ass by the time you settle on it.
How do you know you've made a good decision?
Because you can tell. You can tell. It's something. It's a very nerve-wracking moment when you are settling on that, though.
It's a big decision.
Exactly. I'm going to show you how to make what I consider to be the perfect martini. First thing you have to have vermouth. Just look at the bottle. No, you have to have vermouth, but just a very little bit. So
extra dry vermouth.
Extra dry vermouth,
right? Because there are different vermouths.
Extra dry, or I really like Dolan makes just a dry. It's not extra dry; it's just called dry, and that's very nice.
As my mom would say, how can something wet be dry?
There you go. It seems to make no sense, and yet here we are. Thank you. So you just want to put we're making 2 martinis, so we're going to just put basically kind of 2 drops. So there you go.
Wow.
Just that.
That's it, huh?
That's it. And you don't put this on top. I don't know why I thought that was the top of the thing. I haven't been drinking yet, so.
Because I would have done equal parts.
See, clearly I'm already 2 sheets of the wind. All right. So now it's all about the gin. It's generally I prefer a 3 ounce martini. So and I just I don't use a jigger. I just kind of do it the count method. So I think if you count 1, each number is an ounce. Yeah. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. There you go.
This is crazy.
It always makes people freak out when they see how much gin goes into it.
Because you're just drinking gin.
That's all you're drinking.
That's all you're drinking.
My favorite thing is people go, "Oh, I'll make me a martini, but make it a weak one." It's like, well, it is what it is, my friend. You either have a small one or not. Now here, I'm going to show you the proper way to shake a martini. How many times you've been in a bar and you hear
too many times, Paul. Too many.
Yes, exactly. Don't kill your martini. Some people want it with ice chips. Okay, fine, whatever. But it's rolling. You roll it like this. So you want the liquid and the ice to hit all 4 corners. So you're rolling it around.
It's about chilling the liquid as opposed to aggravating it.
You're not beating the crap out of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you do that, and you want to get it ice cold too. So you do that. I'll let that sit now as we do our twist. Now the twist, this is kind of a small lemon, but that's okay. Find the biggest lemon you can, because it's all about a giant twist. Again, we don't have martini glasses.
We're doing it all wrong. We have the wrong lemon. We have no martini glasses.
It's all right, but I still love you guys. I still love you. Now, and I usually use a knife to do this, but this will get you nice. But yeah,
and no knife.
It's all falling apart.
We wanted to see if we could challenge you, Paul.
I like it.
We watched your Instagram show during the.
Oh, thank you.
During the so we know.
I have to get you a copy of my book.
I would love that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, done. Okay, so that's a pretty sizable twist there.
Pretty good.
There you go. Because the twist is what makes the gin come alive, because it's the oil from the skin. It has nothing to do. Some people think that the lemon twist is all about the inner, juicy part, but it's not. It's all about the oil that is held inside the skin.
Could one use just lemon oil in a pinch if they had to, or is that
I would not suggest it. Exactly. All right, now we're going to pour these into these mugs.
Indeed.
There we go. I know you can't wait to have an early morning martini.
I normally start my Wednesdays with a martini, so this is perfect for me.
Then right to the bourbon after that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Wow, yeah. Those are...
Bang. All right. So now we got them in there.
And they don't have the same pizzazz as they would in a martini glass, do they?
No,
they just kind of
not at all. Exactly.
But just look like water.
Yeah, it's just like, you just if you're a clandestine drinker, this is how you do it. This is my coffee. And
I was wondering if people. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just say the proper way. You got to do it over the top like that. You're just trying to get. Sadly, use like a little thicker of a twist, but that gets in there, and then you go around the edge.
Gives you more of the oils around the edge.
There you go, exactly.
Yeah, I was wondering if there is like a coffee drink that uses gin, because obviously espresso martinis are all the rage, but that's vodka tequila I've seen it with. But could you do one with gin?
You could with my gin, or a similar gin to mine that is a lighter gin. Mm-hmm. You couldn't do with that like a heavy duty one, because that would just all you taste was gin.
Okay, so this is exciting because this is our first real ever martini round.
Oh, there we go.
Always do the martini round, and we never do martinis.
Cheers. Okay, well, I got to see what you think of this first. Oh, even out of a mug.
It's pretty delicious, Paul.
Thank you.
I can definitely drink this.
There you go.
Even though it's very early.
Chug, chug, chug.
Okay.
Nice.
We're on the martini now, drinking martinis.
From a mug. Cheers.
From a mug,
Cheers
which
to
is
you.
Despicable, and I do apologize.
It's all right. It all works.
So you are a cocktail connoisseur, obviously. If you were a cocktail, what would you be?
A martini.
That's it.
That's it.
That's you. But like, that's your personality, is a gin martini.
Yep. Yeah. To me, the martini is the most beautiful thing that represents adulthood. The glass normally is beautiful. The shape of a martini glass is just
stunning.
Perfect.
It's stunning.
It's stunning, but it's a very adult glass, because walking across a room with a full martini glass is a disaster. I mean, it's like it spills over the side. So it's basically saying there are no guardrails. You're an adult. You're in charge of this, It's your responsibility to get through this. And I just think, when I was a kid, I got taken to Las Vegas and put into the nursery that overlooked the casino when I was like 5 or 6. Well, my parents went off to watch a Muhammad Ali fight, and I just sat at that window watching the adults drinking martinis and in tuxedos and gowns, and I was like, that's what I want.
That's what you want. Yeah, it always reminds me that my first experience with martinis is that famous SNL sketch that Kristen Wiig does with Bill Hader and the piano, where she's just like, don't make me sing. It's like, no one's asking you. And it's just like, that's like the dinner party of my dreams.
Yes.
So, I love that.
Yeah.
What's something that made you laugh really hard recently?
The ending of Weapons. When the kids are chasing Ann Magnuson through those houses, and the sound design he did on that with a bash, and I was just rolling.
What's one of the most worthwhile investments you've ever made? And it doesn't have to be financial.
Oh, marrying my wife. No, it's true. I mean, I love my wife, and it sounds a weird investment. She's a great investment.
Great property.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I was always afraid of getting married. I wouldn't call myself a confirmed bachelor because I was too nervous to date. I only had 2 other girlfriends before I met my wife. But I just always kind of thought that wasn't the life for me, and I was better on my own. I was an only child growing up, and then, met her, and she was my manager, and then turned into my wife, and
who's still your manager? Probably in a lot of ways.
I would say, she just gets bigger commission. But we were married 31 years, together 35. So.
Wow, congrats. That's aspirational.
There you go.
Especially in our industry.
I know, I'm telling you, it can be done.
Can be done. You directed 7 episodes of Arrested Development, one of my all-time favorite shows, and you actually made an appearance in one episode as a magician
Yes.
alongside Will Arnett and Ben Stiller's characters. Do you do any tricks of your own?
Well, I was a magician growing up. That was my first kind of foray into showbiz before I got into stand-up comedy. And I can. If anybody has a coin, I can do a trick.
Does anybody have a coin? Martinis, magic. What
Exactly.
can you do?
Here we go. See, so I can take that, and there it goes.
Wow.
It's what we call the French drop. There you go.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll make sure we give that back to our team.
Exactly.
Who are some of your other favorite Pauls?
Well, Paul McCartney, because I got to meet him at the SNL 50th anniversary, and he was so lovely and cool. I like him. Paul Thomas Anderson, who, when I was doing Bridesmaids, showed up on the set one day because Maya, his wife, was in it. And it's like, there's nothing more unnerving than one of the great directors of modern day watching you making a movie. And it's like, all right. Do
you remember what day he was there? What you guys were filming?
It was when we were shooting the big Wilson Phillips wedding scene. It was like got cranes and all this stuff. And I was just like, oh, he must think I'm such a hack. But he was very sweet.
You love underdog stories. That's a big thing that drives you. What's your favorite, all-time favorite underdog story?
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's my favorite movie overall in all of filmdom. Just because, is it the greatest movie of all time? No, but I think it does everything a movie's supposed to do. It moves an audience. You laugh, you cry, you get invested. The stakes are high, and you come out feeling great. I think that's what every movie should do. You've been a part of several notable cult classics. What was it like working on 1996, That Thing You Do? It was really fun. I mean, I was brought in to audition for the lead, which clearly I was not going to get. But I auditioned with Tom Hanks, who I was a big fan of, and I'd never met him before. And he was like, okay. And he goes like, would you try, do you have like a DJ voice you can do? And I've always done this ridiculous DJ voice. So I was like, sure. And so he gives me this big speech, and I did it. He just bust out laughing. He's like, thank you. And then I got the part. And the coolest part about that is everybody who was in that movie became kind of Tom's family. Like that was a real seminal thing for him, doing that film. And so he always remembers me, invites me to parties. He's always so sweet, and we've become buddies. And but there's something nice. I get it, because there's a fraternity that kind of happens with all the actors you work with. And there's always, like, each project, there's a couple of people that you bring along into your life, because making movies is very transactional. Everybody's very, your best friends, and then you go off to other places. But it's nice to have people carry over. And so, Tom bringing me along as one of those people was really nice. Yeah. Another thing I wish I had learned earlier in my career, that people make you feel like family, but not everybody is going to I know. Well,
go along. You know what I mean?
It's a funny thing about, especially working with movie stars, because you have, when you're making a movie with a movie star, they're, you're all part of a team. Like, they're kind of, it sounds gross, they're yours for that period of time that you're doing it. And like, they're on the set every day, and they're hanging around. They're, it takes forever to make a movie. So, hey, they're sitting in their chair, you walk over, your buddies, and it's very easy to get seduced by that. And until you go like, no, this is our special time. Enjoy this special time together, because it's going to end. And it may carry forward and just, you see each other at the party. Oh my God, hey, so nice to see you. But you're not going to, You're going to have that experience. No, you're not going to be like best friends for the rest of your life. But it's okay, And the minute I realized that, I appreciate every moment I'm on the set with a star. Because you're like, wow, this is just, like, this is cool. Like, I'll, for the rest of my life, as that person's being another great things, I can go like, yeah, I worked with that person. Like, I was friendly with that person.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
That's very cool. Well, this has been an absolute delight, Paul.
Oh,
thank you so much for stopping by, for doing all of the things with us.
Anytime. Happy to booze you up.
Thank you.
Honored to do that.
Boozed up I am.
There you go. Exactly.
Now I don't have to figure out how to drive.
I know. And I'm off to Santa Monica, so